we can also just luxuriate in the everyday world, in ordinary work, in life with our among our neighbors and our family members. That is where most of the truth, goodness, and beauty in the world is to be found. And that is what will draw us closer to God and draw others to Him as well.
Hello, and welcome to the Shifting Culture podcast, in which we have conversations about the culture we create and the impact we can make. We long to see the body of Christ look like Jesus. I'm your host, Joshua Johnson. Our culture tells us to look inward to find ourselves. Karen Swallow Prior returns to offer a counter-narrative, one that reminds us that calling is not something we invent, but something we receive. It's not simply about chasing passion or crafting a personal brand. It's about listening, discerning, and responding to the voice that calls us toward what is true, what is good, and what is beautiful. Karen helps us reimagine vocation as a lifelong invitation into meaningful work, quiet faithfulness, and a deeper communion with God. We explore the shifts that take place across a lifetime, the letting go of dreams that no longer fit, the rediscovery of purpose in unexpected places, the beauty of a calling that evolves. We talk about work, scarcity, abundance, suffering, integrity, and the sacredness of everyday life. This isn't a roadmap with 6 easy steps to find your purpose. It's a thoughtful reflection on how God shapes us over time through community, and how even the most ordinary moments can become holy when rooted in truth, goodness, and beauty. Here is my conversation with Karen Swallow Prior. Karen, welcome back to Shifting Culture. Really excited to have you back on. Thanks
It's
for
great
joining
to
me.
be back. Thank you.
I'm excited to go in deep into calling and vocation, what is true and good and beautiful. So I want to just start with the title of your book, and we could just jump in from there. It says, "You have a calling," which is the title of your book, "Finding Your Vocation in the True, Good, and Beautiful." So it sounds like vocation and calling are pretty tied together. What is that for you, vocation and calling? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I mean, in the book, I use the words interchangeably because, and the main thing that I say about them is that they both require being called by someone or something outside of ourselves. So a lot of times you'll hear people talk about feeling like they have a calling or feeling called, which, that I understand what they mean by that. But often that's talking about a passion, a desire that we have. And ideally, in an ideal world, what we desire to do and what we have a passion to do are this is the same thing as something that we're called to do by others, but that doesn't always happen. And so in the book I talk about that, and I'm drawing on decades of teaching college age students who, are asking these questions, but also getting a lot of distorted messages, I think, from the culture about what our work and our callings look like and how our desires and passions fit into those. But it's not just college age people who are wrestling with these questions. More and more people my age and younger and older, mid career or end of career, are grappling with these questions in a very rapidly changing world. And so my basic argument is that we have, callings come from outside of ourselves, and we have multiple callings over the course of our life, and they shift and take different forms and sometimes even end.
That right there, that calling is going to come outside of ourselves is really difficult in this late modern age that we live in, because everything comes from within. Like, I'm
Ex-
going to find who I am. I'm going to discover myself, and I'm going to discover my passion, and then I can live out of that. I want to just know about your journey. What did it look like to follow vocation and calling? And what did it look like coming from outside of yourself, and maybe through community and God and others, rather than just finding something from within yourself, like so many try to do these days?
Yeah. And, it really is. And I didn't use this in the book. It's just occurring to me now. It really is kind of a dance, right? One partner is the inner desire and passions and abilities that we have. The dance partner is the calling that comes from outside. And so the dances can look different, and they can be beautiful, or they could be clumsy, or they could be awkward. And so for me, as a young person, even though it was a long time ago, I still am a person of the late modern age. And so I pursued my passion for reading literature and studying English and language. I had no desire to teach. In fact, I decided I did not want to be a teacher. I wanted to be many things, but not a teacher. But when I entered the PhD program to pursue my passion of reading and studying literature, that is when I accidentally or providentially discovered, because I had an opportunity to try it, that I discovered I was created to teach. I loved teaching. I loved classroom teaching. I still love teaching. And when as usual, when I finished my PhD, I went on the job market. It was not a good job market then. It's even worse now, but I got called. I got the call from the dean, and then I had a 25-year teaching career.
I mean, for you, you have a 25-year teaching career, moving in and out now in the last, 5-6 years as you have.
Mhm.
What does that shift look like? How did you say, oh, this calling may be a little different, but some of what I am called to be in this world has been the same? How do
Yes,
we
yes.
navigate that?
Yeah, I love how you put that, because I put it that way at points in my book, that calling is not just about what we do, but it's about who we are. It's a way of being. And so even though I have gone out of the formal classroom as a teacher, I mean, I do visiting posts now and then. I do different kinds of teaching, but I'm not a full-time academic any longer. I still teach. I still believe that is my call. My writing is teaching, my speaking is teaching, my visiting posts are teaching. So it has taken a different form than it did before. So that can happen for us in a variety of ways over the course of life.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm just looking at your Substack and the things that you are writing, you are teaching. You're helping us navigate different works of literature and different places so that we can engage well.
Yes.
You're teaching. You're a good teacher, and you're somebody that people want to follow because we're gonna actually learn something from you. And so I love seeing your calling play out on different stages in your own life, which is fun to see. Think about work. So a lot of
Mhm.
people, when we think of any type of work today, we think, hey, I need to follow my passion. I have to love what I do. Sometimes work is going to be work, and we're going to have to do it. Where did work come from? What is work, and why is it good for us to have work?
Work is part of God's original plan for us as human beings, even before the fall. When God created Adam and then Eve in the garden, he called them to work, to be his co-laborers, really, in stewarding creation and caring for creation. And they were doing that before the fall. Adam was tasked with naming the animals. I cite in the book, one of my favorite descriptions of work before the fall is from John Milton's Paradise Lost, where he depicts Adam and Eve working in the garden, and the work that they have to do is defined by abundance, because the garden is so rich and full, but they have to lop and prune and cut and trim and cultivate even before the fall. And of course, we all know, because we've all lived after the fall, that it's our work now. It has many different kinds of obstacles. Yeah, it's still part of God's original plan for us. And so I think even though work is hard and it's not always something that we love, it is good, and it is God's original call for us, because we are working with him to serve our neighbors and to serve our families through our work, whatever that might be.
Love Shifting Culture? Well, subscribe today at shiftingculture.substack.com for early ad-free access to inspiring conversations with upcoming guests like Kurt Verbeek on radical justice, Tony Collier on embracing authenticity, and Liz Theo-Harris and Sharon Rebar on powerful faith-based advocacy. Don't miss these transformative discussions before anyone else can listen. Plus, your subscription supports the podcast directly. And remember, rating and reviewing Shifting Culture on your podcast app helps others discover these meaningful conversations. So visit shiftingculture.substack.com and subscribe now. So when I think of toil, I think moving in after the fall and work, I'm thinking so many people have a scarcity mindset that
Mm.
I have to work really hard to get what is ours so we could provide for our family. We could get, and there are limited resources in this world. So, this is why we have wars and
Mhm.
nation states, is we just fight for limited resources. But in the kingdom and creation, Milton's talking about abundance. God said there is an abundance there. Is there a shift that we need to take in our work of knowing that in the kingdom of God, there may be abundance and God is good, our work is good, and God is for us? And I think abundance and scarcity, I think one is one of the biggest problems in this world. So
Mhm.
how do we reframe that and shift that perspective for us?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we have to understand that God's provision is infinite and eternal, and He never runs out of the good things for us. That's obviously not true of the world and particular things in the world. And so I think it does depend on what we have our eyes on. And the reason why that showed up the way that it does in my book, I mean, I think it's an important idea, but it was personal for me. And I don't know that I put this in there or not, but when I was reaching the end of my vocation as a classroom professor and considering what I might do next, I talked with a good friend of mine about an opportunity I had that I wasn't sure if it was a good fit. And he just said, don't make a decision out of a scarcity mindset. Don't just do this because you think your opportunities will be scarce now. And that just stuck with me because I didn't realize I was even doing that. And so that made me look at everything differently. Like, yes, there as I said a few minutes ago, the academic environment has changed greatly and jobs are scarcer and scarcer. Schools are closing. So that is not necessarily a good time in our culture right now. There for many academic appointments, just like the car industry changed half a century ago. Things do shift and change, but opportunities in general and the ability to use our gifts and our talent and our time and our service and our work for our neighbors and for the glory of God will never end. So sometimes we just have to take our eyes off the thing that we've had our eyes on for a while and look up and see what else is out there because those opportunities are infinite.
So hard to look up. It is really hard to
It
look up.
is.
We look interiorly so often, and so it's so difficult. So if I'm looking at like what you did, and you're teaching college students, if my work is with high school, college students in the past, when I ask somebody, would you like to know God's call on your life? Would you like to know what you're supposed to do? Everybody's like, yes. What am I supposed to do? I want to know this. So practically, what does it look like? How
Hmm.
do we start to discern some of this calling and our true vocation for us in relation to the caller?
No, that is such a good question. And I will say at the outset that I don't have a formula or a six-step plan in the book to follow.
Oh man.
Yeah, I don't have God's phone number, so you can call him up and say, "Hey, God, what am I supposed to do?" I wish it were that easy. But I think what I first kind of say is the world and the field are wide open, right? I mean, there are things in God's moral law and in our circumstances that obviously shut some things off. Some things we shouldn't do because they're wrong, and then other things that we can't do because God created me to be 5'3", so I'm not going to be a WNBA player, right? I mean, so there are limitations, but the limitations really, when you're thinking about abundance and infinity and eternity, are just so very few. It's like that tree in the garden, the two trees from which we could not eat, and yet all the rest were there. That's what vocation and calling look like. And so I do think we have to be good stewards of the circumstances and opportunities God places us in, the abilities and opportunities that he gives us. Like some people have an opportunity to go to college and get a college degree and be good stewards, and they should do that if that's where their skill set is. And yet other people have other opportunities, and so we want to steward those well. And then we want to be in community. We want to be around people who can tell us things about ourselves that we might not see, the things that we're good at that we might not recognize. Maybe even people honest enough to say, you're not really that good at this, or I don't think you'd be happy doing this. I have had many people in my life at certain times say, you know what, I don't think you'd enjoy doing this. This would kill you. This would be the death of you. And that has been good wisdom for me. So those are all the things that God uses in our lives, our circumstances, our talents, our opportunities, and the people around us who can speak into our lives to help us discern what our calling might be. And we don't have to live in fear that we're going to miss the one calling, because there are multiple callings, and God can use circuitous paths to bring us around to, something he may have intended for us that we took a sideways route to get to, and that's okay also.
What happens? So I'm thinking of some people in my life. So what happens if they have been in a place where they really truly believe this is my calling? It's also my sweet spot. Like, it's the place that I feel like I was made for.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, we got called somewhere else and we're doing something, but we still long and pine for the place that we feel like we were made for.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a new life and a new world, and
Mm-hmm.
we're not satisfied yet, even though we know we were called and
Mm-hmm.
we know that it was the next thing. How do we be okay that calling shifts,
Mm-hmm.
even if you're giving up something that was good?
Yeah, I mean, I have been there, and I'm probably still sort of still in that transition of giving up something that I thought that I was made to do and doing something different. And there is some of us adjust to change more quickly than others. I do not adjust to change easily. I want everything to be the same every day, but that seldom happens. And so I think we give ourselves grace for the disappointment, the pain, the longing, but we also give God grace, right? We also say, God, you do have something else for me. And there's nothing in this world that is perfect. So we are going to give up some things, but nothing is completely perfect. And so there will be some negative part of that thing we gave up that we should be glad that we got to say goodbye to. And then the new things in front of us have positive things, even if we are still struggling with some of the negative aspects of change or loss. And so, and then for me, I just, because again, and we haven't really talked about this, but my background is literature. I was an English professor. I don't even know, why am I writing about this? Well, for many reasons, but reading literature widely for many years has helped me to see my own place in the human story and how privileged it is and what a blessing it is. I mean, most people who have lived on this earth have not had the ability to make this choice or that choice or pursue this career or that career. That most people have just had to provide for their families, find health and safety and shelter. And we're kind of spoiled as Americans. I'll take it. I'm thankful for it. But we still have to keep that perspective that this is a very limited time in human history where we have so many choices and so many options. And taking the broader perspective to understand the kinds of things that our brothers and sisters in Christ over the years have gone through, and just the rest of humans who've lived in history. I think we need more perspective.
That reminds me, I don't know if you've read Claire Keegan's Small Things Like These.
It's one of my
Um,
favorites.
it's one of my favorite books. And I love the movie from last year as well. An Irish coal miner working really hard, providing for his family, really doesn't feel like this is really a passionate job. It's just a
Right.
hard, gritty job that he has to do to provide. And the whole town doesn't look pretty. There's a lot of ugliness there, but he pursues something that looks true and good and
Mm,
beautiful. And so even taking something like that and his pursuit of that, even in the midst of ugliness and grittiness and difficulty in his work and his job, what does it look like for us then? You're using this framing device of true, good, and beautiful. So what does that true, good,
mm,
and beautiful work look like, even in the midst of a coal miner in Ireland in the
Mhm.
early 1900s.
Oh, yeah, no, I love that you use that example, and I'll avoid all the spoilers, but you described it perfectly. It really is about someone living a hard life that does not look glamorous and fun, and yet pursuing the true, the good, and beautiful in his life and blessing others and his family through that. Okay, that's my spoiler. And so, yes, that kind of perspective, because that's something else I cover in the book, is just how our attitudes about work, even in modern America, have changed dramatically in just 3 generations. It's been different for each generation. And so my argument is simply that wherever we are, whatever our circumstances, if we are pursuing the true, the good, and beautiful in our daily lives, in our work, in our relationships, in whatever jobs we might have, in whatever careers we might be pursuing, whatever vocations we're trying to discern, if we pursue goodness, truth, and beauty, then we are fulfilling our callings. And, I try to just make some practical applications to that, because even that sounds a little ethereal, but at least it breaks it down into, at least three slightly smaller parts.
So let's break down those parts. What is what is truth, and
Yeah.
why are we pursuing truth?
Yeah, such a small question,
I
right?
know, very small
Yeah.
question.
Well, one of the points that I make in this chapter on truth is, Christians today are really good at talking about. Well, we used to be really good at talking about truth. We cared a lot about truth, and I care a lot about truth. Don't get me wrong. But I think we've been limited even in the way that we think about truth. It's always about doctrine or absolute truth, universal truth, and those things are good. But even in the material, physical world, there is truth we need to understand. In other words, like reality. So if we have a vision or dream or desire to do or be something, we need to know the reality of what is entailed in that job, in that lifestyle, all the requirements of it. We need to have a true vision or true understanding of simply what it entails. And so that's why we try things, and that's why, it's good to do that. But we live in so many things are distorted in this digital age. We see, you can sit down in front of a television show and watch, the most dangerous jobs or the most whatever jobs, and everything looks like it's fun and exciting, and you only see a tiny percentage of what it really looks like. And so we have to recognize the reality of the world. So that's one practical application that I talk about in terms of truth. The reverse of that is knowing the truth about ourselves, right? Knowing, are we really good at this thing? I mean, we could think of someone who's a really bad singer and just, gets up and always wants to sing in front of people. And that's maybe a little bit humorous and sad. But think about the people, because we've all had them in our lives, the people who were in positions of some kind of pastoring or teaching and should not have been in those positions, right? So it can be very dangerous to all of us, and also keep a person from finding out what they really are good at and what their true calling is, if they're just pursuing something that really is not their calling.
So then what's the difference then between my truth and the truth about myself?
Oh, because the truth about yourself is an objective truth. Of course, we can never find the entire truth about ourselves, are in our hearts. But again, going back to listening to others, what others have to say about what you're good at that you might not recognize, or just a need that you can fill through your unique circumstances or abilities, and recognizing, that I mean, you can be bad at something and still enjoy it and pursue it. I love to run. I am probably the world's slowest runner at this stage in my life, and I still do it just for myself. But I'm not out there, asking Nike if I can, they'll sponsor me, because I know I'm not good at it.
You can try.
Right? Yeah, right. I could try. I guess I could be like
They
a
might go,
mascot or
that's actually
something, right?
exactly what we want to do for our next campaign. I
I want a Nike sponsorship. But again, that recognition of, I'm just doing this for me, for, my mental and physical health, and not because I have, illusions of grandeur about this ability that I have.
What does it look like in a daily life within community to pursue something like truth?
Yeah, I mean, I think the pursuit of it is, I mean, there are lots of other ways we can think about truth, such as integrity is a kind of is
Uh,
truth. I think about bringing the whole of yourself to all that you do. Like even if you're working for, I think I have this example in my book, and I don't remember which chapter, but of a colleague I had when I was teaching English at a university full time, and her first calling was as a wife and mom, and then she later got her academic degrees to teach English. And the way she taught English was almost like a mom. Like she became like a mom to the kids. She brought her whole self to this position. I was not like that, and that's okay. But so she would often get the athletes and who didn't care a whit about the 5-paragraph essay, but she would just like mother them right into the 5-paragraph essay. And because she brought her whole self, her integrity to her position. And so I think there's a holism that is part of truth. I mean, not that I mean, there's some jobs obviously where being a truthful counselor means you have to keep a separation between yourself and your client. And so different jobs require different boundaries, and different opportunities to bring different parts of ourselves or our entire selves to them. And so again, that goes back to the truth of the work, the truth of the relationships, the truth of ourselves before God and fulfilling his will and his law. I mean, those sound like grand things, but just simply even in the most mundane work that we might do, we can do it truly and truthfully. We want the cashier who's checking us out in the grocery store to do her work truthfully and honorably, just as we want doctors and pastors to do the work the same way.
So then what does good and beautiful look like? How do we discern those things for us?
Yeah. So I define goodness as truth made manifest. So like truth is sort of like the abstract idea, and goodness is what truth looks like embodied. So embodied, so if we do, if we are good people, we have character, we have virtue, that's displayed. That's something that people can see. If we do good work well, then that is the truth of that work being displayed. I quote Dorothy Sayers a lot in throughout the book, but especially in this chapter, because really all you have to do is read Dorothy Sayers. Well, you could read my book as well, but Dorothy Sayers has so much that's good to say. I mean, she talks about we like to put the word Christian as an adjective in front of many of the things that we do, and she says there's no such thing as Christian work. There's just good work that's well done. And that's what Christians should be demanding of each other and of ourselves, that kind of goodness. And there's so many ways to bring goodness to the world through different kinds of work that is done well. And goodness itself is just so good. And I want to drop a little line for all the perfectionists out there who are paralyzed and end up, not doing something because nothing short of perfection will do. That is just a wrong mindset, because when God created the world, he described the things he created as good, and then at one point very good. And good is good enough for God. And so, yes, we can pursue excellence, and I believe in that, but good is good as well.
Creativity and creation, being co-creators. A lot of people are like, "Hey, I would love to do this true good and beautiful work," and thinking that it has to look a certain way.
Mm,
What does that look like
mm,
embodied in a culture, especially in our capitalistic pursuit of
mhm,
wealth? What does being people that pursue true good and beautiful look like as a opposition to
mm,
the wider culture?
that is a great question. And of course, my whole reason for talking about truth, goodness, and beauty in our vocations is because God is the source of all that is true, good, and beautiful, and that's his character and nature. And so, if we are pursuing those things, we're actually pursuing God. So it's just another way of thinking about pursuing the will and the ways of God. And so that doesn't really look a lot like materialism or consumerism. And but it does look beautiful. And that's the thing that I say about beauty, is that beauty, especially beauty, just attracts us. And there actually is a history of the word beauty that connects it to the word calling. So that's where I, kind of land the book, is because beauty calls us. And so when we are pursuing the calling that God has for us in our lives, and there will be different ones, we're actually pursuing beauty and we're displaying beauty in a way that attracts people to the source of beauty. And it's not to say that people, people who have beautiful homes can be hospitable, and that's a way of drawing people to the beauty of God. But people who don't have beautiful homes and who just are kind and have beautiful souls and attract people, they are showing them something of God. And so they're, again, going back to the fact that we exist in late modern America, there are many options and many choices that most people in history have not had, and there are lots of ways to pursue truth, goodness, and beauty, and to draw people to God. But the point is that's what we should be doing, no matter what our calling is.
What happens when there's a community of people that are supposed to follow what is true, good, and beautiful, and they decide to follow something different?
Mhm.
What is our role as people that do pursue those things and
Mhm.
have that good vocation, and we are people that are true, good, and beautiful and pursue truth and goodness
Mhm.
and beauty? What happens when people go off the rails?
Mm.
What does it look like to call people to back to those things?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a role that we all have in one another's lives and community, is to help one another to keep on that pursuit. But there certainly do come times, as you've suggested, when that accountability and that calling and that nudging doesn't work, and then we're faced with an example. I mean, to go back to truth, we have to face the reality that's in front of us. I think, it's easy for us, I've done it myself, to kind of deceive ourselves and say, no, these people are really trying to do the right thing. They may not be doing it right. They may have made mistakes, but at some point that's actually can be, we're deceiving ourselves. And we have to say, no, they have been faced with the truth. They have been told how to correct and have not. And so the reality is that for me to pursue truth, goodness, and beauty, I cannot do this with that community or this group of people. I mean, that's just sometimes a decision that we have to make, but we certainly should always be seeking to hold one another and asking others to do the same for us, holding us accountable for pursuing truth, goodness, and beauty.
One of the most impactful funerals that I've been to was a man. He died in his early 50s, I think. He was a forklift driver for his entire career. But the truth and goodness and beauty of his life lived out while doing the work of something that seems mundane, really had a huge impact
Mm.
on 1,000 people that
Mhm.
were there and around. And it was his life that actually gave us the truth and goodness and beauty. Is there an example that you have seen of people that are embodying some of this that have inspired you to say they're actually following their true calling and vocation? And it may not look, if we just look at the job,
Mm.
it may not look that way,
Yeah.
but
I mean, there are so many people in my life. I mean, I grew up among and surrounded by ordinary people who, don't make news and aren't famous, and they aren't, celebrities in the evangelical world. My mother is one of them, who she lived 88 years, and almost every single one of those years she was teaching children, even beginning when she was in elementary school and went to a one-room schoolhouse. She helped teach the younger students, and she never went to school to be a teacher, but she taught Sunday school. She taught, our younger family members, made lessons for them. She just did that her whole life. And there are so many examples of the fruit of that ministry over the course of her life. And yet she didn't have a TikTok. She wasn't on Twitter. And she wasn't a celebrity evangelical, but she was a faithful servant of the Lord. And there's an expression we have for like salt of the earth kind of people. Another example is my husband, who took on a second career as a high school teacher at our local public school. And so many Christians think of ministry as just working for the church and getting a paycheck from the church, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I've done that. But there is ministry to be done just in our actual neighborhoods, in the schools, and in businesses, just living as ordinary people, doing good work well, honorably, truthfully, and beautifully.
So what do you think a community of people doing that work would look like?
Yeah, I think, I think it would look probably small and humble and healthy and varied in the way that, beauty is a variety of things. It's not just uniform. And, I think that I think there is a hunger for this. I think that celebrity culture and mega institution culture has drawn the church away from these sort of simple, ordinary things. And people have been presented a distorted message that, if you really love God, you're going to do big things, great things. And some people will do big and great things. But loving God and serving our neighbors well doesn't always look dramatic and exciting. And so I think communities that are rooted, like church communities that are rooted in the local community and are known and loved by the local community because of who they are and how they are and what they do, will just make the larger communities thrive and flourish in ways that don't draw attention to the church community, but just simply show themselves in the richer lives of everyone who lives there.
So I want to go back and talk a little bit about the distinction between passion, following your passion, and calling. What we've been talking about with the true, good, and beautiful feels like this is who I am. It's an embodied thing that I'm doing, that I'm being. I'm being somebody that is pursuing truth and
Mhm.
goodness and beauty. It all sometimes doesn't look like maybe what I'm passionate about, which passion equals suffering and means suffering. So pursuing your passion sometimes will just bring you straight to suffering, but it's okay. So what does that look like then? If it is really more about being than about what you're passionate about doing.
Mm. Being is a subjective thing, but if we're talking about truth, goodness, and beauty, there are some objective qualities to those. So I think there's sort of an interplay between objective truth and goodness and beauty, and then how that subjectively plays out in the way that we live and are. And passion has an important role to play in that. But the point that I really am trying to make in the book about passion is I'm trying to counter the lie that the past couple of generations have been fed, which is that, that you're going to get paid a lot of money to do what you're passionate about. Like that, what sometimes that happens, and that's wonderful, but that should not be our expectation. And so what we have is a lot of, I see it all around me, is people refusing to take work that is not aligned with their passions, and therefore, floundering in many, ways. Whereas we often have to do work that we're not passionate about, and then but we still pursue our passions, in other parts of our lives. Work should not be our entire life. And then the other point that I make, which is supported by the research of Cal Newport, who does a lot of research in this area, is he has found that people end up becoming passionate about the work that they do when they've done it long enough to become competent at it and good at it, and that they actually, one study that he several studies, but one study that I cite in the book that he talks about is the length of someone doing the job correlated directly with their passion about it. The longer they did the job, the more passionate they became at it. And it was not an exciting job. It was like being a college administrator assistant or something. And so passion has a part to play in all of that, but we live in a time when passion has become sort of the be all and end all of what we should do and our own measure of our success. And no one should feel that they are some kind of a failure because the job that they do is something that they're not passionate about, or it wasn't, they have a passion elsewhere. I have encountered that many times. And one of the examples I cite in the book is a young millennial who had a job that she was passionate about, and she just decided to leave it because she wanted her work to be her work, and she wanted to pursue her passion on the side. And that's also another way of living a fulfilling life of service to ourselves and our neighbors.
Do you think evangelicals are more prone to confusing passion with with calling
I
than
do, yes.
other Christians?
I think that's become a kind of a tick in contemporary evangelicalism. Probably there are people who could do a good job researching where that came from and why that is, and there are probably multiple reasons. But we've definitely become a culture that measures our relationship with God by the supposedly great things we do and the passion we have, be passionate for this and for that. And the other point that I make in my book is, some people are just even keeled people who aren't like burning with passion all the time. And that's actually okay. Like, we need more even keeled people in the world.
If I'm looking at the back of the book and you're citing all of the works that you've cited, there's a lot of literature in here. Can you, which is fantastic, and I love that. So can you give
English
me
prof,
some
got an English prof. All
exactly,
right.
exactly. It's amazing. So can you give me some examples from literature about how this works?
Yeah. So one of the poems that I include is by one of my favorite poets and one of my favorite poems, the 17th century Puritan or the 17th century Anglican cleric George Herbert. The poem that I include is called The Collar, and it refers to the clerical collar. He was a priest. And the whole poem is him as a young priest speaking to God, raging and raving before God because he wants to get out of ministry because he doesn't see any fruit for his labor, and he's angry at God because he's serving the Lord, not seeing fruit, and the Lord could bring the fruit. And the whole poem is him just yelling at God. And the poem ends with God answering to him, "My child." And the poet says, "My Lord." And it's just a beautiful poem. It's submission to the Lord, but it's also a picture of how the Lord welcomes our railing and our questions and our anxiety and our frustration, and still loves us as his children. And that is our ultimate calling, is to be his child.
Oh, that's beautiful. And that's, man, thank you. Like, I want to be a child of God, and I want to get to that place like I'm okay there, whatever I
Yeah.
do and wherever I go, and whatever befalls me in my life,
Mm.
that I'm a child of God and I could say, Yes, Lord. What is your hope for this book? You have a calling. What do you hope that people would get from this and what it would give to the world?
Well, I hope, again, I said that I don't have like 6 steps or a magical formula for finding your calling. So what I hope it does is that it just opens up the field, opens up the range of possibilities, because some people are going to pursue their passion and uh, do good work and get paid a lot to do it, and other people are not. And some people are going to love their jobs and other people are not. And some people are going to do one thing their whole, one main vocation their whole lives, and others are going to do a lot of things. But I want people to see just the beauty and variety and the truth and goodness and the way that God can use it all and will use it all, and that we don't need to narrow our options, but we still need to have realistic expectations. I think that's a great poison in our culture, is that our disappointments and anxieties come from unrealistic expectations. And so we can dream big and trust God he's the one who's going to bring the fruit. But we can also just luxuriate in the everyday world, in ordinary work, in life with our among our neighbors and our family members. That is where most of the truth, goodness, and beauty in the world is to be found. And that is what will draw us closer to God and draw others to him as well.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Karen, can you give us some recommendations? Anything you've been reading lately you could recommend?
Oh my goodness. Well, have a lot of citations in the book, a lot of, again, a lot of I like to read literature, so I'll give the literature recommendations. You already mentioned These Small Things. What is it called? These Small
Small
Things,
things like
like
these.
these. I can never remember the
Yeah.
title. Excellent book. On my Substack, which you've already mentioned, I am taking readers through a survey of British literature. We begin with Old English, go through Middle English, and now we're in the 17th century. We're just ending the 17th century. So I think all of the classic literature is wonderful to read. I'm also posting on there some books that I cannot recommend, which is a little fun thing. The books that I might not know you, so you might not like it, but I liked it. And so lots of literature. And I hope you'll read this book and follow all the footnotes, because I cite a lot of different kinds of sources. Works on vocation. There are a lot out there. I had to read most of them to write this book, but hopefully mine will just give you a little taste of the best of all of them. And it's short and sweet, so then you can go on and read great literature after this.
Well, this book is short, it is sweet, and it is beautiful. And
Thank
I
you.
love the way that you wrote this. It just brings me into the world, and I just feel like I am enveloped into this book. It just feels
Oh.
cozy and good, and
Oh.
it just makes me want to be a person that pursues truth and goodness and beauty. So be a better person in this world, and that, high and lofty passion and calling may not be the pursuit that I want, but the pursuit of truth and goodness and beauty with wherever I go. So well done. This is a
Thank you.
fantastic,
Thanks.
fantastic book.
Thank you.
Highly recommend it to everyone. If you have people that are pursuing calling, what does it look like to live in this world, and what they need, give it out and buy a bunch of copies for friends. This is a fabulous graduation gift for people as well. There's all sorts of things. So this book should, for many years, be handed out to many people. So
And I
it's
will
good.
there are generous bulk discounts are available. So just contact the publisher so you can get a lot of copies cheap.
Excellent. Where would you like to point people to so people could get it? How
Yeah.
can people connect with you?
Substack is the best place. My newsletter is titled The Priory. You can find me on the site or sign up for my emails. And I'm also sadly on X, which is not very true, good and beautiful, but I am there. And Instagram. Instagram is a little bit more beautiful. So I like to share pictures of my flowers and my dogs and my runs. So
Nice. And your library.
and
You
my
share a lot of,
library,
yeah.
yes. Yes, follow the journey of my library, which is it's been so hot, I haven't been doing any work on it, but it will continue as summer abates.
Exactly. Well, Karen, thank you for this conversation. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
bringing us into the pursuit of truth and goodness and beauty. What is our true calling? That we have a calling, we have a vocation, that we could actually work with God, that it is in relation to the caller, to the person being called. We are being called from the outside of ourselves, and it's not just about what we desire, to the things that are within us. So we don't just find it within us, we find it from outside of us. It's beautiful. Thank you, Karen. It's
Thank
great.
you, Joshua.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Shifting Culture. This show was edited and produced by me, Joshua Johnson, at Shifting Culture Productions. If you're enjoying the conversations, consider supporting the work by subscribing at shiftingculture.substack.com. For as little as $5 a month, you'll get ad-free early access episodes and other exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox. I'd love for you to not just listen, but engage. Reach out, share what's resonating, and let's keep shaping culture together. Whether you're a listener with feedback, a creative with an idea, or a brand looking to connect with a thoughtful, engaged audience, let's talk. If you're interested in advertising on the show, I'd love to hear from you. Contact me directly for rates and availability. Until next time, let's keep shifting culture.